Good day everyone, it's Caitlin, and today we're making baby caps again, this time from the later half of the 19th century. Hello and welcome. We're going to continue our saga of caps today. So what we're going to start off with is I have some of this wool flannel, and we are going to cut some caps that are basically like the diaper caps that we made last time. And the purpose of a flannel cap, according to most of the books I've been reading, is basically for after a baby's bath, to keep their head from getting too cold. Next, we're going to use a pattern that I drafted for the Workwoman's Guide to make a linen cap. Now, the pattern from the Workwoman's Guide calls this a flannel cap. They want you to make this out of flannel. But all the extents I have seen of this exact style have been made from a linen or a cotton. The next caps we're going to do I've already cut out. These are an older cap that I cut out years and years ago when I first started making baby clothes. So I've taken them apart, but the Workman's Guide also has this pattern. It's the pattern with the little circle in the back. You see these often highly decorated. I've seen many excellent examples of highly embroidered ones. I've seen patterns in the 1830s Godey's Ladies books for embroidery patterns, but today we're going to make them a little bit more plain. But I wanted to show you what the pattern pieces looked like. What I am going to do is use this to help me cut my 1880s caps out. So my 1880s caps, I'm using the Cassell's Guide to Household Management, or Cassell's Household Guide, something like that. And they don't give a lot of directions for caps because at this point, according to Cassell, caps at this point were only being worn outside underneath the hood. I guess either for decoration or to keep the hood from irritating baby. I don't know. But they have a very small, very awful engraving of said cap, and I'm having a very hard time finding extents, so we're going to copy that. So what I'm going to do is double this and cut that. By the 1880s, apparently we're doing very full trim. I'm also going to need, so this will be the front, I'm also going to need a back to this. Working on the first step. So that is just sewing the side to the front pieces so that we have a nice little cap shape. And I am using a back stitch just for security purposes. To give it a little less bulk, I've been cutting down so this is the front of the cap, or the side pieces, and this is the center back piece. I've been cutting down the center back piece about halfway. And I fold that over. I'm not worrying about folding this under because I know that this wool is not raveling. So I'm not concerned about, folding over that raw edge. It's really just about making the seam as smooth as possible so it doesn't irritate a baby's head. Next, we're going to do what we've been doing with all of the wool bits, which is using the herringbone stitch to hem them. So this is what it's looking like so far. You can kind of see beautiful herringbone stitch. Now on the underside, that's what it looks like. And when I'm doing my herringbone, I want to make sure that I'm getting through both layers of the wool. I also want to make sure that when I do this bottom one, I'm catching the hem and not going too far down. Fold the raw edge in, although it doesn't seem to particularly matter too much. Just attach these straight to the corners. I have one more to finish, and then we'll go ahead and start on the linen caps next. Alright, we are working on the linen caps. So I'm going to start by doing a run and fell seam on this very back end. Fold that in, and it makes a nice little finished seam. And then we're going to just go across here with a hem stitch. Next, we're going to take this little hole and we're going to fill in the hole. So I'm going to do a running stitch. It's really a gathering stitch, but I'm kind of doing small, tight little stitches. Go all the way down. Okay. I'm going to pull on this. I gotta figure out where I put some pins. I know I have at least a couple somewhere. Basically, we're matching it to the bottom of that piece. Get that all nicely situated. And we're going to back stitch this. So then when I turn it inside out, we have this. And it looks like a little cap now. So we're going to fold, make a narrow hem, fold it twice, and do a hem stitch. So we have a finished side, and then we'll put lace on it at the very end. And this one we're not going to put ties on because the original doesn't have ties. This is the last step of this particular cap. It's just adding the lace. I have a bunch of this cotton lace of various projects, and making these little baby caps is a perfect way to get rid of it. And I had just enough of this lace, as you can see. Now the original had a bit of lace right here. I'm not going to do that on this cap because I do not have any lace left, but on the other one I have just enough lace to do that as well. So I'll leave this one without it, and I will do a little bit of lace on the other cap. Here's the other cap. And I'm just going to stitch it right down right across there. Next we'll get to move on to the 1850s and 60s caps, but there's those. Alright, we're going to work on the 1850s and 60s caps. So these are the ones that I made up incorrectly, and so I took them apart. On the very bottom of them, I'm doing, actually I don't know why I'm trying to do a back stitch, I just need to do a running stitch because we're about to run a velvet seam. We're going to go ahead and fill in this hole here. So what I need to do for that is go ahead and do a quick gathering thread. Now that I have that done, I'm going to mark halfway on this cap. So there's one, and mark the halfway point. And we're going to set a little circle for the back. I also need to mark the halfway points on this. Then I'll gather this thing to fit. It's going to be very lightly gathered. It doesn't need much at all. Even that's too much. And then we'll sew this with a running stitch, and then come back to fell it. You can see how lightly gathered it is. It's not very full at all. Which makes sense for the mid-19th century because we don't really do fully gathered things. Even trims are set on with either no gathering or just very slight gathering, typically. Alright, so I did the running stitch. We're just going around felling it just to get rid of that raw edge, to make it a little bit neater in appearance, and for all the other reasons we usually fell seams. Now this one I completely unhemmed. The other one I left the hem. It isn't fantastic, but it'll hold. So I'm going to just leave it. This one I undid because I wanted to use it as a pattern for the 1880s cap. or partially. I need to just know how long it was. But I do kind of already have it because this for years has been hemmed. So obviously there's a holes where I sewed last time, and I can go ahead and fold it over because I can tell where it's been. And we're going to do an actual hem stitch. Last time I did a running stitch, which would not be exactly what you would want on this. A hem stitch like this would be far more common. I'm going to go all the way around. And then we get to trim it. And this is the other cap, so the one I did the running stitch on, that I'm going to leave. So there are actual heirloom stitches you can use to attach lace. I'm doing the lazy way, which is just a whip stitch. Now I do technically have 3 centuries worth of baby clothes to make before I end up pregnant and have a baby, so that's a lot of sewing, and a lot of that is hand sewing because of the time periods that I do. So fancy work is not really on the agenda right now. It's get baby clothes so I don't show up with a naked baby at events. And the trim is set on plainly, so there's no gathering. That's typical of laces of this time period, put on very plainly. If they're gathered, it's like very, very little. You would hardly even tell that they're gathered. And I'm doing a little bit of gathering on the corners just so the lace lays nicely. And we're going all the way around with this. So start at the very back, turn the corner all the way around. I have more lace than I thought. I wonder if this is enough to do a whole nother cap. Hopefully so, because I'm running out of lace. I'm going to need to build up the stockpile. But not until we move, because I don't want to have to move anything else. Okay, ties need to be added. So right here, these don't look very long. Those, I mean, they'll work. They're a little short. We'll go ahead and use them. I have another cap to put ties on. And then we can start the 18-inch caps. And I totally made that pattern up by looking at an image, so I'm hoping that one works. Alright, the 1880s cap, we're working on this lace. So I think the original was a shirred piece here and then gathered lace up here. I have a long piece, and I know this is somewhat period because I've seen this in the Workwoman's Guide where they kind of just gather it up here and put something underneath to stabilize it. So I'm going to do that, although I think the illustration does show 2 separate pieces. Because I know this is a period technique, I know it's going to work, and it's less work. So what I've just done is I'm running 2 separate channels, little gathering channels. I think I started 1 3/4 inch from the very tip top of my lace. And I'm going to use whatever tape I've been using for like the ties and all that. So I think it's about 1/4 inch. So I'm doing about 1/4 inch on the other side of that first seam to make my second channel. So my tape, I measured these caps, and they are 14.5 inches across, so that's what we're going to make this. So I cut my tape 15 inches long, because we are going to be turning in the under edges because they are raw. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and fold this in half. And this is long enough I might want to do quarters. Except I want to go from this end. I'm going to do the same thing with this, do it in quarters. The middle, I'm going to just pin this right here. And then this is about my seam allowance, except for the fact I Let's put a twist in this. That's not good. Let's do it this way. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. That's going to help with my gathers. So this is what it looks like now. I can go ahead and take my gathering threads. Except for the fact I caught them, so can't right now. There we go. Pull them both. And that was definitely a little too much, but I'm going to kind of pull them out. And we're just going to fit the gathers evenly in each quarter. You can see how nice and full this is. Very different from the mid-19th century. So from the front, it's going to look a lot like this. It's very nicely full. Alright. Now I have that fully attached. I'm going to take this first thread. And I'm going to whip this little tape. So I'm going to go all the way up, back around. So I'm going to do this twice, one on either side of the tape here. Alright, so I attach the back. And I am just doing a back stitch to attach the back to the front. I don't think I am going to fellow the seam because it's too much. It's gathered on both ends. And it's hard to fell a gathering thread or to a gathered seam. And the back side here is very big on the very back bottom. So we are going to have to put in some ties there just to kind of fit it to the back of the baby's head. But other than that, I'm not going to put in other ties because the illustration does not show them. And given that this is only to be worn underneath the cloak or outside, I guess they don't really need it because they would assume that your cloak would have ties. And so this just fits in underneath. And I'm going to go ahead and sew this down. And I'll add the ties in a second. All the other side to put in, I have another cap to do. But then our caps will be done. Alright, here's our caps. So, the 1880s ones turned out really large, even though they're the same size as these, which is strange to me, but I mean, I guess it works out. I think it's more the back is larger, which is supposed to be because it's supposed to be really poofy. But the good news is this will even fit like a toddler or something, so one size fits all, and it'll just be really big on a baby, which I think is okay. They'll grow out of it soon enough anyway. But yeah, those are our lovely little caps. They turned out so cute, and I am so ready to be working on something else other than white fabric, as we've discussed before. It's just petticoats and stays, and we are done with 19th century underpinnings. We can move on to something else. And I'm also ready to work on something by machine for a change. Hand sewing is fun, but not when it's all day, every day. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you here in the next video.